Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. So happy Sunday. It is Sunday today. I have no idea when this vlog is going to get out, but happy Sunday. And it's been a tough week, I will say. I haven't had one of these long exhausting weeks in a very long time, and I thought today would be a great opportunity for me to do a little creative session, get back into some of the things that I used to enjoy doing, and just spend some time doing that at home. So recently on my For You page on TikTok and on Pinterest, I've been getting a lot of these architectural and building paintings as some sort of inspiration, and I haven't painted in a very long time. I used to paint when I was in high school, when I did design as a subject, and I really got into it back then, but honestly, since finishing school, I haven't had the chance to actually sit and do some painting, so I'm gonna do that today. Now, obviously, I have a lot of journals that are in my journal ecosystem, and I try to get my creative time in by, drawing or collaging and junk journaling and then writing, reflecting, and doing all of that stuff. But I haven't actually done some very deep, like immersive creative stuff in a way. So I thought painting is definitely a very immersive experience, and I'd like to get back into it. So back when I was in school, I used to have visual diaries where we would have to actually use them as source books to design a certain product and go through the 5 phases of design, and that basically consisted of doing a lot of inspiration, drawing, a lot of experimenting with different media, and I did all of that. I worked with tons of stuff, color pencils, crayon, oil pastel, watercolor, acrylic paint, pens, gel, ink, you name it. So I do have some experience in doing a lot of that stuff, and I used to enjoy it a lot more, but again, since I have been studying at university and since I finished studying and just working, I haven't really made time to kind of revisit those hobbies or those sort of skills that I built. And so today we are going to start my new sketchbook slash visual diary, but it's going to be on a miniature scale, and it's going to be purely expressive and purely artistic. And before we kind of get into that, I wanted to kind of break down some of the things I'm going to be using and just kind of give you guys a bit of a haul of the stuff that has been sitting in my shelf that I was like, oh, one day when I get back into it, I will use this. And so a lot of the stuff has been lying around collecting dust, and I'm glad that the inspiration I've been getting from my outside world has kind of triggered that for me, and now we're gonna get to it. So the first two products are our sketchbooks, essentially. These are both like square shaped visual diaries. They're 120 millimeters by 120 millimeters, which is 12 by 12 centimeter. And they are basically the Finalo visual diaries by Delhi. I do buy a lot of products from Delhi, so no surprise that it was Delhi. And I got these at Value Co, and I'm sure any stationery shop or brand that stocks Delhi should have these. I did use one of these, I think a black one, for my agenda or my diary of 2025 last year for my planning, and I really enjoyed it. It was very nice to have a DIY sort of diary where I got to bullet journal every month. However, it was a little much for me, and I think I'm happy with the agenda that I have now. So we're gonna stick with that, and I kind of wanted to keep these for, a potential opportunity like today. Now, obviously, these two are exactly the same. I have no idea which one I want to pick. I think I want to pick this one because it's very minimalistic, but I also wanted to go out with this one because it kind of symbolizes or it shows there's creative expression in here because of the bright color, and it's something that's not, the same as my other journals. Of course, we're going to have a toss up for that, but I don't have to decide on that immediately. And before we go ahead with that, I did want to open them up and kind of show you what the pages are like. And so it's kind of got this like pebbled texture. And then when we open them up, the pages are sketchpad friendly, of course. They're very thick and perfect for I'm hoping multimedia. I was able to use brush pens on them last year, which makes me think that they're going to be watercolor friendly. And I was able to use fine liners on these pages and they didn't bleed. So I'm hoping that these will be watercolor friendly. And that is one of the things I wanted to explore today. The second item I have on the list to use is the Deli Finalo fine liners. These are 7 liners and they're all black and of course different thicknesses. So we've got 0.2, 0.25, 0.3, 0.35, 0.4, 0.45 and 0.5 are the different thicknesses of each nib, and I think this is something very common that people use, of course, when they are doing like very detailed sketches, and again, they've been lying around. I bought them about 2 years ago, so I think it's time that we test them out. The next set of fine liners or pens that I'm going to try out in this book, I may not be using them today, but I do hope to use them sometime in the future, is my trusty Pigma fine liners. I've mentioned these so many times and I would still use them. And because they are 0.2 millimeters, they're extremely fine, perfect for sketching as indicated at the back here. And I think if I'm not going to be using any watercolor or I'm going to be, you know, needing the colors that come in here, it's going to be great. But for now, I am just going to be using the black fine liners and we're going to try out some watercolor today. And speaking of watercolor, we are going to be using the Koi watercolor palettes. And again, I've had these since high school and I've been using these for years. However, she's used. So this I used, I think, for a combination of acrylic paint, the tray, and some watercolor. That's why it's stained so badly. But this is my palette. She's extremely messy and cracked, and the colors are kind of bleeding into each other, and I'm not entirely sure whether this is a great idea to use now. And so the sponges, ASMR, are a little crunchy and I feel that it's not a great idea for me to be using this one. And so I decided to unbox a brand new one today. I did buy 2 in high school. One I used and then the other one has just, again, been sitting around. I do have a second open palette which I barely used, and this is the one with the pastel, neon and glitter colors in it. I barely used it. Look, it's like perfectly intact. So this one I'm definitely going to be keeping and I'm going to be using it, of course. The Koi palettes are so cool. They come with the tray, they come with a brush pen, they come with the sponges, and they come with the swatches of the colors on the back of the casing. So perfect to carry around, little perfect travel size. I do believe you get them in a bigger and a smaller size, but I think this was like the average size. And this is our brand new one. I have not opened it. Again, it's the same as the very first one I just showed you. And we are going to have a look at it and see whether this is the correct palette. I am opening her up. Clean tray. That makes me very excited. And clean paints. So I am super excited to dive into this and use these. I do have a ton of brush pens as well to show you guys. So in addition to the brush pens that come with the Koi palettes, I do have quite a lot of them. Again, creative person, did a lot of this stuff in school, so I have collections. Some of the brush pens that I collected over the years. I do have a couple sitting there in my study table area where I do all my creative stuff, so I will use some of them, but I believe I've got 2 packs of them, so whatever I'm showing here is pretty much the same as what's over there. And surprisingly, I don't know why, but they have water in them. I did not empty them out, so I need to empty and clean them. But essentially, I got like a pack of 5 with like a very fine nib, a medium nib, a thicker nib, and then one that's like a square sort of nib, like that. So yeah, we have got a lot of variation and a lot of options to use, and we are going to dive straight into that. I do want to get some swatches out of the way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize the paint, choose the diary, and then I'm going to swatch all of the fine liners that I'm going to use just to see if they work well on the paper and thereafter I'm going to swatch the paint, and thereafter I'm going to swatch the fine liners and the paint together to see if they bleed, if they smudge, and if they work well together. And if they do, our plan is going to go accordingly. If they don't, of course, there are always other options. Like I said, I've got millions of brush pens lying around, and I do have Copic markers, and so we can find a little, I guess, alternative to how we are going to have this creative expression session. But I'm hoping that it is going to go well, and yeah, I don't know how much talking I'm going to do in the actual painting process, but I am definitely going to update you guys on what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'll just have some background music and you guys can enjoy. So I took a little bit of a break from doing the swatching and stuff. I had to go run an errand. So I did that, and now we are back home. It is around about 8:30, and I'm going to continue with my little creative session. As you guys would have seen before, I did a little test on whether the fine liners bleed when I put watercolor over them, and based off of these results, I would definitely say no. The butterfly here in the corner, it did seem like it was gonna bleed a little. However, I did draw that one last and I put paint on it first, so I don't know if the fine liner ink needs to, I don't know how to say it, maybe kind of dry or sort of settle into the paper before you put paint over it, because the leaf, which is the first one I drew, and then I did all the others, and the leaf was like completely dry or completely settled when I started painting, and none of it bled, none of it leaked or smudged, and I put quite a few layers over it, so I think it's looking good. And I did use the 0.3mm fine liner for drawing these, and I think I'm gonna be using that one a lot. So that is like your standard size of fine liner that you usually use. So we're gonna have a look at some inspiration for drawing. I'm going to draw everything in pencil first, and after I go with pencil, I'm gonna go over everything with a fine liner, and then we're gonna go in with the paint. So to draw, I do want to just give this a little honorable mention or a little feature. It is a mechanical pencil or a clutch pencil that I found at Typo, and look how chic this is. Very, very chic. It is 0.5 millimeter lead, so very thin and good for sketching. So I'm going to sketch in this first, go over in fine liner, and then we are going to do everything in paint or add some color. And yeah, just really kind of enjoy the evening. I'm going to put in some background music if you guys want to watch me. And yeah, I've got something that I'm gonna watch in the background or have some music playing, and yeah, enjoy.